Happy Monday. It's July 18th. This is Derby Day, and it's not the fraternity hangout day. It's actually the home run derby day. Jack McMullen, Aram Layton, Just Baseball show. We're kicking off All-Star Weekend. I have no idea how many episodes we're going to bring you for the All-Star break. It might be an actual break for Just Baseball and the Just Baseball show, but you know what? We're pumping one out today because we've got Soto to go over. We haven't talked to you since then. We've got the draft, the first round of the draft to go over. We're going to give you, a final look at the home run derby. A guy got optioned. And I want to talk about that for a moment too. But I also want to bring up the word about the Marlins weekend against the Phillies. I'll do that at some point. It'll just kind of be like a sneak attack thing.
Great. Yeah.
But first and foremost, how was your birthday, man? 25-year-old Aram Layton.
Yay, thank you. Well, it ties into that. You've heard me say this a couple of times, but I think it just kind of encapsulates everything just so well. My mom and my girlfriend Ellie were kind enough to get my friends together and surprise me with just having a bunch of people at the Marlins game, because usually I gotta pull somebody's arm or twist somebody's arm to get them to come to a Marlins game with me.
Hey, will you suck this up and do it with me? Yeah.
Yeah. So Ellie and my mom were like, oh, we'll take, we want to get everybody to the game, whatever. So it was awesome because we find out shortly after it's Max Meyer's debut. And I'm like, oh, this is wonderful. It's going to be, I knew I was going to the game. I didn't know who was going to be there. I get there, all my friends and cousins, and it was awesome. And, we're at the game and I'm like, this is awesome. We have Meyer pitching. All my friends are here. They lose 10-0. And, I just figured that was almost just a microcosm of my Marlins life. Just being a Marlins fan growing up. Not even on my birthday would I have friends and family there. Could they give me a 5-3 loss, 6-2 loss,
No.
10-0 in Max Meyer's debut? You can't make that shit up. But other than that, it was awesome. It was a really awesome experience. Anyways, it's about the people when you're at a ball game like that. And it made for a lot more fun conversation and a lot less focus on the game. I'll tell you that.
I understand. Yeah. It's funny. I shot you a text yesterday that you had a 2-day birthday celebration because that was the day before your birthday on Sunday. Day one, they got 10-pieced in Max Meyer's debut. Day two, they drafted a DH 6th overall.
Yep.
So that's kind of what the Marlins do to you. I saw Mish use this word, and I thought it was perfect. Embarrassing for what happened against the Phillies. That was just an embarrassing weekend for the Marlins. And, a lot of people are not going to be paying attention to the middle of the NL East right now. They're going to be paying attention to the top two. But with this expanded postseason, you get the feeling that either Philly or Miami was going to get into the postseason field. And this was a big test right before the All-Star break. Do the Marlins run through the tape at the finish line and take this 4-day break and just chill for a moment? Or do they go down without a fight? And it was the latter. I mean, they went down without a fight.
It was the latter, man. And it's funny because I didn't know if we were going to open it up, talking about the Marlins that much. But honestly, it's an important topic for just baseball in general right now, just based on that series, because going into the series, the Phillies were just outside of that last wild card spot. The Marlins were a game and a half or two behind the Phillies and 3.5 out of the wild card. I think 3 actually by the time the series started.
Yeah.
And now the Marlins sit 5.5 back, and the Phillies are now tied with the Cardinals for the 3rd spot and the final playoff spot in the National League. That shows you how much a disastrous series can just change the tides. And you can look at it two ways. I look at the All-Star break as maybe it's a much needed rest, or, you just hit a wall going into, a bad time where you're just going to sit there and fester. I like what we're seeing from the Phillies. I mean, that's what the Phillies have to do, is take care of business against the teams that, you should beat. And now just try to stay afloat while Harper is out. If Harper can get back, in the next month and they can stay within 2-3 games of the wild card, and right now they're tied for it, they've got a shot, man. And I still maintain the Giants don't scare me. And the Marlins were the next biggest threat, and they don't look like they're any sort of a threat. It's going to be Phillies Cardinals for that final spot. And I think it's going to be pretty fun to watch as it winds down here.
We're going to get to the Cardinals a little bit later on in the show, because I think the Cardinals just added some pitching depth without hitting the trade deadline.
Mm-hmm.
So we will get to that, but sticking in the NL East for a moment, the biggest story of the transactional baseball season so far. So the biggest thing to happen off the field. Juan Soto declined 15 years, $440 million from the Nationals, according to Ken Rosenthal. It's kind of 3 strikes and you're out. That's the third extension that he has turned down. It would have been the largest contract in the history of American sports, I want to say. 15 years, 440. It would best Trout, who was 12 years, 426. So Trout had a higher AAV, but nobody's ever seen that long of a deal and that much money in one contract.
Correct.
But that's what Soto was looking at, and he said no.
Yeah.
Which was kind of fucking crazy.
Yes, it's crazy, but when you break it down too, you can understand it at the same time. I still don't. This is where I toe the line here of I don't fault the Nationals. I think that was probably some of the best that they could do offer wise, longer term deal, a little bit lower AAV, average annual value. But here's the thing is I tweeted that, like, what else could the Nationals do? And then you remember one of the first guests of the Just Baseball show, Michael Schwimmer of Big League Advance, who obviously is going to be pretty knowledgeable on contract structure and things like that, because that's how they make money. Big League Advance, of course, is, I would say investment firm is probably the best way to describe it.
Yeah, they're an investment firm. Again, like the quick 10-second pitch on them is they offer minor leaguers an upfront sum in exchange for a percentage of their future earnings.
Yes, which gives them financial stability and certainty. At least at that point you're gonna make some money and be able to support your family, train, whatever. They did it with Tatis, and that's kind of how they rose to prominence.
And they're doing it with Ellie De La Cruz too. I saw that on Twitter. Ellie's a big league advance guy, and then Spencer Steer is too.
Steer is, that's funny. Well, Ellie De La Cruz is a perfect candidate for that too, because he was a cheap international free agent. He only signed for I believe it was either
65. Yeah,
$65,000. So I mean, he didn't have much to really bank on. So it makes sense, and that's why we like agree with a lot of what they're doing there. But he said, Michael Schwimmer replied to me on Twitter, and he's like, the offer's a joke. And I understand where he's coming from the perspective that $29 million a year is what it would average out to, is significantly less than a lot of the best players in baseball will be making. My case here, though, is 440 is 440, and you're guaranteeing that now for the duration of your career, essentially. Yes, if you go LeBron style, you can make more money. But at the same time, if you go LeBron style and you get hurt or your game starts to dwindle, I mean, imagine if Christian Yelich turned down that long-term deal and decided to go short-term. He's screwed. And I don't think Soto is going to end up like that. But I think it's ridiculous at any point to ever call 440 a joke. But I do totally understand where Schwimmer's coming from here, in the respect that if he really wants to bet on himself and be not be risk averse, you can go this way and you will probably squeeze out 600 by the time you're done if he does it right. And we know Scott Boras is going to have him do it right. So I'm interested to see what it takes, but maybe they go shorter term and then he signs another deal on the back end of his career. But I think for the Nationals, it just doesn't make sense to go much higher than that. Yeah,
I'm with you. The other thing situationally that jumps out to me that kind of slipped my mind, and of course it slipped my mind because when I see $440 million, I just get nauseous. That's a very, very high number. But I saw that, they wanted to backload it, which in turn would decrease the value of the dollar with inflation, just naturally occurring here. So I think Soto was thinking that 440 would actually equate to around 400 in real-time dollars. Yeah. Or around 410. That's something that I would never think about if I was offered $440 million. I think Michael Fisher, who's another guest of the Just Baseball show on Codify, put it best. He said, if you line up 440 million $1 bills, that stretches 43,000 miles. I would say yes so quickly your head would spin. I think that's me too.
At the same time, though, it's relative, but that is actually, I love stats like that. I love stuff like that. And I agree. And I still think that it was a fair offer from the Nats, but I mean, realistically, they have crazy financial obligations to Patrick Corbin, to Steven Strasburg. We've talked about that. And if they're signing a deal with Soto, if it's 6-7 years, the first half of that deal is going to be non-competitive baseball where, you're not really getting much out of it. So yeah. I understand them trying to make it as long-term as possible and backload it once you have Corbin and Strasburg off the books. But I don't really see how the Nats can get competitive anytime soon. And ultimately the result of this is that we're going to see some trade talks. And that's the big thing. And we talked about it in the past. Everyone was like, oh, you're nuts for being okay with trading Juan Soto. Here's the thing. He's a right fielder who's not great defensively. He's one of the best hitters in the modern era already and is on a fast track to the Hall of Fame. But he's one player. He's one hitter. And if Mike Trout can't win it for his own team as one of the best defensive center fielders, speedy, and I think a better offensive player all around, and the numbers would back that up, then what is going all in on one Juan Soto do? Trading one Juan Soto will get you multiple big leaguers probably and multiple impact prospects. It's probably the best thing for the Nats franchise long term.
Yeah, I was going to say the path to winning as soon as possible is by trading Soto.
Yes.
Because you're getting young, good major league talent and really good high-level minor league talent. I think that's what you're looking at. And it's a combination of both. Yes, it'll be the greatest trade return we've ever seen in the history of sports. Nothing will ever come close because you're getting 2.5 years of Juan Soto. But you got to make the deal with the right team. And we were spitballing on Twitter immediately after. I know both of our minds were racing, and Peter's mind was racing too. And I shot him a FaceTime, and it was just, a question as to like, who can do this? Who can go get him? And the short list that I put together was the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Guardians, maybe the Mariners, maybe the Orioles. I think those are the 5 systems that can move for Juan Soto. Do I think that 5 will do it? No. I think there's going to be one ballsy executive that does it, and his name is probably AJ Preller.
Yeah,
and this will be a moot point.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is not only is it how many teams can do it prospect capital wise, it's then how many teams can afford it. So, and that's the problem too, because Orioles could do it prospect capital wise. They could trade Cedric Mullins or Hayes plus any assortment of prospects and another big leaguer. And
if they did Mullins, Gunnar, Cowser, and a pitching prospect, I think that probably gets it done. But here you are, just shipping off your future.
Yep. Yeah, and it wouldn't make any sense for them. And so the Orioles they're capable, not going to do it. Also, they're in a ownership dispute, and I doubt they're shelling out 400 in commitments to or 500, I guess, because 400 didn't work. To really lock up a right fielder. It's got to be the Mets too. I think you got to throw them in there. I think they can find a way. I don't necessarily know how, but they have to be able to find a way, because I know that they're going to try. And I think if you look at what the Mets have roster wise, system wise, it would be very, very tough for them. I'd assume that they would draft or trade almost multiple guys that they drafted this year. Remember, they had the 11th pick, they had the 14th pick. They could probably put something together on top of that. They got Parada, which is crazy for him to fall. The Nats were tied to Parada. That could be a guy that is instantly traded if that's something that happens as well. Of course, inside division is not ideal when you're trading a Hall of Famer or potential Hall of Famer. It's really down, I think, Dodgers, the Yankees. Those are going to be 2 teams, the Padres as well, that could put together some really good packages and obviously are not afraid of the money side of things. My problem with the Padres is they don't really have that much big league young talent. It's kind of polarizing to a degree. I would assume they'd have to trade Abrams in that, but it's one of those situations where Trent Grisham's not helping you anymore.
No, he's terrible.
So it's tough. I don't really know necessarily how they put together that package. But I assume they could find a way to do so with the prospects. If I'm trying to make the case for the Mets, I know that the Padres can find a way to do it.
Yeah, I think so. And, we're going to put together like a detailed rundown of possible trade construction. Like, we're going to put together mock trades for the Soto deal this week at justbaseball.com. So be on the lookout for that. That'll probably come after the All-Star game, because it's not happening anytime soon. But I saw a good one on Twitter, and I'm forgetting who replied. It was, I think, honestly, a faceless bio, but I thought that the return was pretty comparable. It was something like Abrams, Gore, Hassel, James Wood, and another.
So much.
And they're done. Like, they have no more future after that, but your 1, 2, 3 in the lineup is Tatis, Soto, and Machado. And that might be enough to win you a World Series.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Tatis, Soto, and Machado. I love that. Like, yeah, and that's something that I know Preller's thinking about already.
Yeah.
He's probably sketching out the lineup card already, just
Right.
staring at it. And they could do it. I mean, that how do you say no to that? That gives you pitching, that gives you offense, gives you multiple positions, gives you prospects who are relatively either close or just monster upside. It's a ridiculous return. And I think a lot of teams would struggle to match that outside of the Dodgers, and the Yankees would have to give up Volpe. And still, I don't even know if the Yankees could completely match that with the combination of big league ready talent and top end prospects.
I don't even know how the Yankees package comes together. Like, it's for sure Volpe.
They don't have the young talent at the big league level, really. It's probably Glaber.
Yeah, but how much value does he carry right now? I don't
He's
think
swinging it. He's swinging it.
Like, the only reason we pitch that for the Padres is because we know that AJ Preller has no problem decimating that roster.
Yeah, I don't. That's not really like Brian Cashman.
Yeah,
it's not like Brian Cashman to do that. He will strike in spots, but AJ Preller is the guy that will decimate his roster. I agree. I don't see Brian Cashman being that guy. So it's gonna be interesting to see what some of the reported, maybe if we get those, so what some of the reported packages look like and what they kind of float. But I mean, it's gonna change the Nationals' dynamic in a good way. I think long term, it's gonna give them a lot more balance to their organization.
Did you see what Andy McCullough tweeted out earlier today? I think he put together some trade packages for Soto, and one of them was Soto to the Angels for Ohtani, Anthony Rendon, Joe Adell, and cash considerations.
What?
I don't know.
Why would they? Why
I don't know. See, that's what kind of pisses me off about mock trades, to be totally honest. Like, that would never happen, ever. Let's be more realistic here. Like, let's not whip Angels and Nats fans into a frenzy thinking that we're going to do Soto for Acuna or Soto for Ohtani.
In a salary dump.
In a salary dump. Like, that's not happening, everyone.
Yeah, it's just like, let me go and go crazy and just put random shit together and throw shit at the wall.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't like that.
I don't like it either. So that's my thought. Torque sucks.
I can't figure him out.
Torque is a Toledo mud hen.
Yep.
It's incredible. He got optioned. He was hitting what, $198 when he got optioned?
It's weird, man, because I dive into it and like, I can't figure it out. I really can't, because he's not chasing. He's not whiffing an egregious amount. He's still walking a decent amount. The BABIP is low, but the spray charts look good overall. There's not really a specific hole that you can poke in terms of like the data, which is what makes it really confusing. Zone contact is good for a power bat. The only thing I could say, I guess, is just impact, right? I mean, a lot of the balls that were home runs for him seem to be dying at the track, or seem to be routine fly balls, or whatever it is, because that would point towards the BABIP. I don't really know, man. It's pretty weird that Spencer Torkelson would have a 577 OPS when he's never had that at any stop of his career, and has just always been a masher. I know it's the highest level, but it's not like he's getting blown up. I'm really struggling to see what the challenge is here for him.
Isolated power under 100 at 098, and the average exit velocity, like you're saying, like he's not impacting the ball like he has before. 89.5 is his average exit velocity. That's way lower than it should be. And we can't compare him to Yordan, but Yordan's average exit velocity is 96 miles an hour. There is a massive difference between 96 and 89.5. 89.5 is something that a ho-hum big leaguer puts together. 96 is what borderline best power bat in the game puts together. And that's what we're expecting Torkelson to be at some point. That's what Al Avila drafted Spencer Torkelson first overall in 2020 to do. And right now, like, I think everybody could dream for a moment in April and May. But once we got into June and the beginning of July, a lot of people got impatient. I was getting impatient. I was like, where is he? What are we doing here? Come on now. Like, chop.
And it's just not happening. It's not happening. I think it's the right move to send him to triple. It's at this point, let him kind of get back into a relaxed environment where he knows he can hit, he can mash, and go from there. But it's tough because I mean, a big part of why I think people were excited about the Tigers this year, it was like, okay, Torkelson's ready, Green's ready. They went out and got some guys. They're going to look better. And it's just been a disaster for the Tigers, not beyond Torkelson. Erod is away from the team. And I don't know if they've heard from him yet. And even when he was with the team, he wasn't pitching well. Javi Baez has been bad. Riley Green ended up being hurt for the early part of the season. And just now is really getting going. Torkelson, obviously, has been a disaster. It's been really frustrating. I feel for Tigers fans because they came into this year at least with some semblance of optimism. The good news is that I like what they did in the draft, and we'll get to that on the back end of the episode. And I also still really like what they're doing system-wise. I think they're doing everything the right way. They're not rushing anybody. They're not rushing anything. But I think people thought they'd be closer to competing this year. They were never going to be a competitive team this year. I think the hope was they'd be closer to 500. We were a little early, I think, for thinking that, I think, for the most part. And now we look at this team and they say, okay, it's fine. It's a lost year. Look for development. Look for these guys to get going. And if I'm a Tigers fan, I'm looking at individual storylines. I'm looking at, can Torkelson get going in triple and then get back and finish strong at the big league level? Can Riley Green continue to do what he's doing? Can Erod return the phone calls? Like that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. And my follow-up on Torkelson is, if he starts breaking in triple, how quickly do you bring him back up? What if he goes down and across next week after the All-Star break, like they get back in action on Friday? What if Friday through Friday, he's got 4 homers and he's got a 1,300 OPS that week? Is he back up?
Let it ride. I think he's got to see a few different, like at least 2 different series.
He's got to be back down there, I think, for a month. I think he should be there for a month.
I would say at least 2 series, which would be 12 games. It's roughly like
2
14
weeks.
days. I would say that's the bare minimum. I would want him down there for a month. Build on it, like just work on something, because clearly he knows what's up. Something's up. The numbers aren't going to tell us as much. Whether it's approach in terms of pitch selection, because he's not chasing, like I said, and the swing decisions are not bad. But something's there. I know the 4-seamers are blowing him up a little bit up. He crushes sinkers, so it might be like a swing path thing. There's a lot of things that he can now work on in a controlled environment. And if he struggles a little bit through those adjustments, who cares in triple? Like that's what I kind of want to see. And it's going to be interesting to follow and see how things look for him there. But, I don't know if anybody's outlook on Torkelson has changed. I know mine hasn't. He's 22. He was fast tracked to the big leagues. Most guys would just be mashing in the minors right now. And if he was doing that, we'd be hyping him up still. But it is frustrating timeline wise. It's just a little bit more of a delay of Torkelson's impact.
Yeah, it's really frustrating timeline wise for, I think, Tigers fans, because obviously you want everything to be sunshine and rainbows, and you wanted Torkelson and Riley Green to come up at the same time. They, relatively speaking, came up at the same time because Green, the only thing that was stopping him from being on the opening day roster was his foot. So he's here, he's ready, he's performing. You wanted Torkelson to be here, ready, and performing, and he was not here, ready, and performing. So now he's down. Mentally, I have no idea how this is going to screw with him. I've got no clue. If it does, then that's not good. And you've got to reset here and get ready for the start of 2023, like you're saying. If Torkelson spends the rest of the year in triple, and if he has like an 800 OPS in triple, you think that fucks with his head a little bit?
It could a little bit. I think it's possible. But at the same time, I mean, this guy's hit his whole life. So I think he's already having his head being fucked with a little bit, right? Like this is the first adversity this dude has probably ever faced in his baseball career, legitimately.
And I would say maybe he's like overthinking a part of his swing, but there's nothing to overthink in his swing. He's so quiet. I think that's why Detroit loves him. There are no moving parts there.
That's what's weird. That's why it's really hard to peg exactly what's going on. It could be like a small path thing through the zone. Like it could be the smallest tweak in the world, but that's why I feel like he's going to be fine. It's really hard to watch him and poke an obvious hole. And I think he's going to be fine long term. But anytime somebody gets sent back down to triple, you always hope when your top prospect gets called up that he's never going back. And it sucks when he does, because you're like, oh no, what's happening? Yeah. But I'm far from sounding the alarms on Torkelson. It's just not what we were hoping for, and that happens.
Yeah. All right, let's wrap with the draft. and we'll kind of go, guided through it. We'll talk about picks 1 through, we'll go to 6. We'll go to Barry. We'll go rapid fire 1 through 6, talk about what we liked through the rest of the first round and then what we liked after the first round. Cool?
Yep.
1-1, Jackson Holiday. Peter is now the owner of an island, apparently, because he got what? Holiday at plus 1,100.
1,100. Yeah, we mocked that, and Peter saw the odds after our mock, and he's like, all right, I got to take this. If we're mocking Holiday, he's like, I believe in what we're doing here. If we're mocking Holiday 1, I'm betting this at plus 1,100, and it hit for Peter. So that's pretty awesome. But on the legitimate like baseball side of things,
yes,
Jackson Holiday, you can't go wrong. Drew Jones, I think that's somebody that a lot of Orioles fans wanted. Maybe a lot of people were expecting to go number 1. I'm interested to see how the money shakes out here, because the slot value difference between pick 1 and 2 is pretty significant. It's about 6.5 or point. Sorry, excuse me. It's about $0.65 million. So $650,000 is about the difference here. I work in decimals in my head. I got to sometimes translate that, but $650,000 is the difference. And that's a lot when you're trying to be strategic draft wise, especially if you could get Jackson Holiday to take a little bit less than maybe the second pick value. I assume he's going to be getting something between that, and the O's probably save $500,000. But if you're saving $500,000 there with all the picks that the O's have, they acquired the Marlins competitive balance pick in that Cole Sulser Tanner Scott trade.
Yeah.
This allows them to be a lot more creative. And if you look at these players as 1A and 1B, that could be kind of the difference maker. And I have a feeling that might have been the difference maker. But that aside, Holiday is a potential 5-tool shortstop that I think is, you can look at him and say it's similar to Bobby Witt with a little bit less explosion. I mean, but you're looking at tools across the board, bloodlines, just makeup off the charts. Like there's a lot of similarities there, just with maybe not quite the off the charts tools, but he's also a little bit younger. So it is interesting.
And you got a guy that can stick in short too, because if you look at the Orioles right now, Gunnar Henderson is the shortstop prospect, but he's not a shortstop. He's not sticking at
Probably
short.
Third baseman.
He's going to be a third baseman.
Jordan Westberg, he's passable, but not a true shortstop.
Exactly. And then Kobe Mayo's not a shortstop. So you just drafted a true shortstop. You just drafted the future shortstop of the Baltimore Orioles when you've got catchers set, when it looks like you have third base set, when it looks like you have first base set in Mountcastle, when it looks like you have the outfield set with Mullins and Austin Hayes and Kauser and Kerstad coming up, and it looks like you've got the front 2 in the rotation set. Obviously, Baltimore still needs more pitching, but I think they just did a really good job shoring up a spot that they needed, and they've got a guy that they can really dream on here. And I'm with you. Who do you think comes in at a higher number, Holiday or Drew Jones at 2?
I mean, Drew Jones is going to be more expensive, I think.
You think he's going to sign for a higher slot value, or you think he's going to sign for a higher bonus?
So you're saying Holiday at 1 now or Drew Jones at 2? I think it's going to be almost the same. I think it's going to be something roughly like that. But
is Holiday under, Jones over?
Yes. Yeah. And I think if Jones was going 1, he wanted the full slot value. If he's going 2, he's getting the full slot value. I think that's kind of what it was at. So, I'm interested to see where it shakes out. But I think that might have played a big part in it. Regardless, Holiday, I mean, you can make the case with the helium that he's had that he was the best player in the draft too. And I don't think it would be crazy to say. And he looks like a kid. Like he still has a lot of physical development to come, and he could really explode. I love the swing from the left side. The tools are all great across the board. And obviously Matt Holiday being his father, similar to Drew Jones, and Andrew Jones being his father, two of the best examples of Hall of Very good. I would say Andrew Jones should probably be a Hall of Famer. But that is two really, really good players there. And sons now of very good players with pretty good track record through high school.
Yeah. Drew Jones too, 6'4", 180 pounds. Feels like he's got room to fill. And if you can dream on an outfield of Drew Jones, Corbin Carroll, and Alec Thomas, you're a happy man as a Diamondbacks.
You have 3 center fielders. You have 3 freaking center fielders out there. You're never going to have a ball hit the ground. It's unbelievable. You can hope on that in maybe 3 years. You're hoping Drew Jones can climb quickly. With the defense, I think he will. It'll be interesting to see the bat. I don't see too much swing and miss relative to most high school guys that fit his skill set. So he could be a little bit quicker. But regardless, the fact that you would have like who's playing center, it's probably Drew Jones because he's projects as an elite defender. But the fact that you could displace Corbin Carroll from center and put him in left, and it would be Alec Thomas in right, probably.
Yeah,
that could be the best defensive outfield in baseball by a pretty good margin.
And they can all hit.
And they can all hit too. Yeah, these aren't all Ender Enciartes. Like these guys can hit. That's really exciting to dream on.
Yeah, 100%. Kumar at 3. Kumar Rocker was the shock of the draft, going 3rd overall to Texas. I mean, he's going to go join Jack Leiter in AA immediately, I feel like. With Rocker, it's probably up next year. He and Leiter are probably up next year, right?
Assuming that they pitch the way they're capable of and healthy. Yeah, I think the goal would be at some point next year. Rocker is already dominating indie ball guys and has looked really good. And this is also another one of those picks where if he was healthy and there were no health concerns, he would have signed last year for a lot of money and probably would have been drafted right around this range. He would have been drafted in the top 5. Fell to 10. We know the whole story there now. The Rangers were able to save money here too. So they're getting a guy that, assuming the shoulder doesn't, go wayward, and apparently, what they say was it was a minor scope. If he's healthy, you could get a guy that realistically has a chance to be the best player in the draft, or the best pitcher in the draft, excuse me. And you got him for about 1.6 million in savings.
Yeah.
And now can go crazy with your other selections. I saw Jeff Ponce float this of Baseball America, who's been on the call up several times. And he was saying that he wouldn't be shocked to see Brock Porter, who fell out of the first round and hasn't been selected because of signability issues. Seeing Brock Porter go, also a Boris client, also somebody that, probably is leaning towards going to college, but now with $1.6 million in savings, you give him first round money. The Rangers could get 2 first round arms here and 2 of the 4 best arms in this draft if they are able to get Porter to sign.
And you've got one that's starting several levels ahead of the other. That's the thing. Porter is, the high school guy that's going to have to climb from the complex up. But Kumar is, again, helium. I think the best pitcher in this draft. I don't think it was particularly close because what we saw from Kumar Rocker last year, it was all health related. He was better. I mentioned this on our live stream last night. He was better than Leiter last year. Kumar Rocker was the most dominant pitcher in college baseball last year. He was the best pitcher in the country. I think that Kumar Rocker has the ability to turn into an all-star very quickly at the big league level. And I think that's what we're looking at here. And if the Rangers played their cards right and they can spend on a faller in the second round, or maybe even the third round, you're living so large right now.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, we knew they needed pitching. We didn't know how they would do that at 3, and this was the way to do it. This is a really unique way to play it. It could backfire if Rocker has health issues, but I think it's a risk you got to take. They've been playing risky over the last year and a half, 2 years, and I like it. I think it gives them the most upside, especially on the pitching side.
Yeah. Tamar Johnson at 4. He was born in June of 2004.
Yeah,
my God.
Annoying. It's annoying. Yeah, I don't like looking at that. He's a really good bat. I mean, I think the Pirates have to be thrilled to be getting Tamar here at 4, especially with the struggles of and health wise of Nick Gonzalez, bat first, second baseman that, it doesn't seem to be fitting the timeline necessarily now as of late. It's going to be interesting to see if Tamar can even pass him with how advanced he is of a hitter. They said, best hit tool in the draft, potentially, definitely best prep hit tool. It's not even close. You got to be happy when you're getting that guy at number 4. There was legitimate, talk of him at number 1. It's a great pick, and there's not too much more on that. I just don't think he's sticking it short, obviously.
Charrington said they're going to start him at short. They're confident in the shortstop abilities, but here you are adding him to an organization that has O'Neal Cruz and Leover Peguero manning down shortstop. He's going to move.
Yeah, he's going to move, and it's probably going to be second base, and he'll be very good.
Yeah. Elijah Green at 5. Green is 6'3", 225. He's probably the best athlete in this draft.
Yeah. He's probably the best athlete. What really stopped him from being the number 1 pick was a little bit of swing and miss concern, and he's maxed out. He's 6'3", 225, like you said. He's maxed out physically. All these other guys, you can dream on a little bit more physical projection, other than Kumar Rocker. But offensively, you can dream on a little bit more physical projection. Elijah Green is maxed out. What you see is kind of what you're going to get. But in terms of upside, it's very similar to Drew Jones with elite center field potential, exciting power, and bloodlines to an athlete. His father was an NFL tight end. I mean, this is a very, very good prospect. I think the Nats had to swing for the fence here. And they did that with Elijah Green, who, given who was on the board, highest upside, I think, of anybody that was left on the board at that point at 5.
100%. And we know that they're going to get a king's ransom of high-level minor leaguers for Soto. So you could take a high school guy. You don't need somebody to rush up there. Last one that I want to go over in depth is Berry at 6.
Yeah.
Talk to me about Jacob Berry at 6.
I've slept on it a little bit. And I wanted Brooks Lee really badly. I thought Brooks Lee was the perfect fit for the Marlins. They don't really have a long-term shortstop right now, especially with the questions around Khalil Watson. Brooks Lee would climb extremely quick, high floor, switch hitter. I love that pick for the Twins at 8. But the Marlins went with the safest bat in the draft. And that's ultimately what we were asking them to do to a degree. It was what I was begging for the Marlins to not draft a high schooler, to acknowledge their weakness when it comes to developing bats. And Jacob Berry is a switch hitter with an 8% strikeout rate, with exciting power, and is just as safe as it gets offensively. And I think that's ultimately what the Marlins were looking at. He's positionless, I think. I mean, they draft him as a third baseman. They think he can stick there. I disagree. I hope that's true. I hope he can. But they're really drafting the bat here, and with their struggles in developing bats, I'm okay with it. It's just I'm not thrilled about drafting a questionable position player defensively at number 6.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. All right, let's go back and forth picks that we liked in the first round and beyond the first round.
Let's do it.
I'm going to take 2 off the top, number 7 and number 10, 2 heavy fastballs that were taken. Cade Horton at 7 by the Cubs. I think he pairs wonderfully. If you look at young arms for the Cubs, they needed an arm. Felt like they reached a little bit for Horton, but he was the first pitcher off the board, second pitcher off the board after Rocker. But Horton, he's a heavy 98-mile-an-hour fastball. It pairs well with Killian with a high spin top of the zone fastball, Horton's bottom of the zone. And then playing to the Rockies' strengths, Gabriel Hughes out of Gonzaga, sinker slider guy, mid-90s sinker, really good wipeout slider. We know that plays in Colorado. The Rockies took Gabriel Hughes. I thought that was a massive, solid pick.
Perfect fit for them there. I loved the Hughes pick. Horton, I'm interested on the money. If they're saving money there, Horton has a lot of upside. We talked about it on the stream. Five starts of dominance to finish out his collegiate career. And he was a two-way player who didn't really have that many innings under his belt. So you're hoping that you were buying a guy still kind of at the bottom of his upward trajectory with a lot more upside there. And they needed a power arm, a power right-handed arm in the worst way, because Killian's really the only other viable righty that they have in terms of prospect allure. Some of the picks, obviously I mentioned the Twins pick. I loved that one. I mean, for the Mets to get Kevin Parada at 11, I think you've got to be really happy with that pick. I know that Parada is a little bit of a question defensively, but I love that because, again, we're looking at ways for them to be able to potentially put a package together. Parada is going to help there, but also Parada is just a really exciting bat. Now, outside of Francisco Alvarez, they don't have much catching wise in their system, but when you're drafting Parada, you're drafting bat first, and that was probably the best remaining bat in the draft. They get him. I loved that pick. The other pick I really liked, or I'll go 2 more because they're back to back here. Justin Crawford with the Phillies. Yeah. Carl Crawford's son. A lot of helium late in the draft season. He's one of the younger players in this draft class. 6'3", 175 plus runner. I think Kylie McDaniel gave him 80 grade speed with physical projection there. I mean, if he's 6'3", 175, he's got some room to fill out. Love the swing. It's simple. I think there's some pop potential there. I'm a big fan of Crawford, and I think it's exactly what the Phillies needed. That's one of the better upside options you could have picked out there. And then for the Reds to get Cam Collier, to find a way to I would assume meet his price. Yeah. I would assume they're gonna be able to meet his price here. That's a great selection. We're talking about a guy that had a lot of steam for top 5 falls a little bit, continues to fall because of signability concerns. If the Reds can sign Collier, that's a really exciting bat to add to an already really good system.
And we were talking about it on the stream last night. Even if the Reds have to financially punt the rest of the first, 10 rounds, that's okay. They can do that. They already had a top 5 system. Adding Collier makes them a top 3 system in baseball. So you just needed to add top end talent, and they added top end talent. I think the quickest riser and the first guy to big league ball was just taken at 22. Cooper Jerpy by St. Louis. I think what Jerpy can do with that low 3/4 high sidearm slot from the left side is he can be a lefty nightmare. Opponents hit 170 against him this year at Oregon State. I think he can be a swing man for the Cardinals and make several inning starts in September of this year. I think Jerpy is that kind of guy where maybe Jerpy is the ad at the deadline. I would prefer if they went and got a Frankie Montas. I don't know if they're going to do it because it feels like they are married to their top prospects, and it's going to take one of those top prospects to go get Frankie Montas. But I think Jerpy can add some pitching help, which we know and everybody knows they need if they need to make a postseason run.
That's exactly it. I was looking at Barriera or Jerpy, and they went back to back there. 2 lefties, but they want the guy that's got more proximity. The latter being somebody that was in high school in American Heritage. I love the pick because not only is he a guy that could help them this year, he's also just really exciting as an upside guy. Like I think he's the best pitching prospect in their system immediately. So you're not only getting someone that's going to climb quick, you're getting somebody that is instantly the best pitching prospect in your system. And with Liberatore kind of teetering the line of just being like an okay back end guy, it's nice to mix in a lefty with upside. Who I think instantly plugs in as a higher level prospect than him until he proves to us that he might not be able to do what we think he can. And I don't know if that's ever going to happen.
And who looks different. Liberator and Flaherty are the mechanically sound, over the top, full wind up guys. Jerpy is a sidearm starter. That's great to see. So it's just another look, literally physically, just another look coming out of here. Another guy, 30th, Reggie Crawford, was a 2-way guy that had Tommy John, that can hit 100 on the mound and is a massive human being that has 30 homer potential. Is he a legit 2-way guy? Yes or no for San Francisco?
I think so, man. I think so. I was asking Pete Flaherty about him because he's not too far away from where Pete, likes to go out and watch a lot, is kind of his scouting zone there. And he loves him. And I mean, we talk about triple digits on the mound, powerful swing as well. It's funny. I think we're looking at a different time in baseball here where we got Bubba Chandler in the minors. And now you have a new abbreviation. If you're looking at the draft tracker, it's OF for outfield, obviously SS for shortstop, whatever, P for pitcher. For Reggie Crawford, it's TWP, 2-way player. Someone had to add that in, which is hilarious. And I'm sure it was very recently that was added in. I love it. And it's cool that it was the Giants that did it. It's really interesting to see the Giants dabble in a 2-way player. They did that with Casey Schmidt in 2020. But the interesting thing is they shortly after told Schmidt focus on just hitting. Crawford's a better pitching prospect than Casey Schmidt was, who was their 2nd round pick. And Schmidt's really been looking good at third base for them in high A, now probably soon in double. But it's interesting. Either they like the 2-way guys because of what they're able to do just athletically, and if they end up picking one, they still like them more, or they really like giving it a shot with the 2-way guy and then seeing where it goes. Either way, they do it again here with Crawford, and this could be a big time upside guy at number 30. If it weren't for Tommy John, he probably would have been top 15.
Yeah, back-to-back picks in the competitive balance round. 33 and 34. Dylan Beavers goes to Baltimore. Landon Sims is stashed by Arizona. I thought those were 2 really good picks here.
Arizona needs arms. But at the same time, I would argue that, their system is leaning a little bit more arms. It's arms and outfield. I still think with what the Diamondbacks have done over the last couple of years, they could always use arms. And I like them getting a high floor arm here with Sims, and a guy that, again, was looking really good as a starter. And if it weren't for the Tommy John surgery, probably would have pitched his way comfortably into the first round. That's why he switched to being a starter. He wanted to, boost his draft stock and prove that he could be that kind of guy. Dylan Beavers, big time upside dude. Orioles really crushed the upside in this draft, which is exactly what I wanted them to do. Those are two awesome picks. And I mean, to get those guys in the compensation round is great. And remember that in 2020, Orioles crushed it in the compensation round by getting Jordan Westberg, another college bat here in the compensation round. And I like it.
How many minor league games does Ivan Melendez play? Not MJ, Ivan Melendez. Melendez, 43rd overall to Arizona.
I guess it really depends on just how well he hits out of the gate. It's fascinating to me that a guy like Jacob Berry goes 6th overall, and then a guy like Ivan Melendez falls because he's positionless all the way to 43. And I understand that there's a little bit more track record, there's a little bit more there, but I mean, I'm just shocked that there was 42 picks ahead where nobody wanted to take Ivan Melendez, who, I mean, if you run through his numbers last year, are comical.
Stupid.
If he continues on the trajectory that he's on, I'd imagine that he only plays about 55, 75, something like that, kind of in minor league games, and he could be up, in 1 year, Andrew Vaughn style.
Yeah. Barco, 44th overall to Pittsburgh. I really like that pick, Hunter Barco.
Another first round guy if he was healthy, right? I mean, undergoes Tommy John surgery, and was it Tommy John or it was some sort of injury that cut his season
Tommy John
short, and ultimately cuts his season short. But he probably would have been a first round pick had he been healthy as well. Was shoving at UF before going down.
Peyton Graham to Detroit at 51st overall. That is a steal of a pick.
I loved what Detroit did. I love Jace Young. I think that was one of the more overlooked names in the draft because of just the helium of the high school guys. And then to go get Peyton Graham, they got two of my favorite college bats in this draft with a lot of power upside. I like it a lot from what the Tigers did.
Parker Messick going to Cleveland is hilarious. Messick is just another college great lefty that the Cleveland Guardians swoop up and get. This feels very similar to the Doug Nikhazy pick.
Well, and even like they went first round with
DeLauder.
They went first round with DeLauder.
Yeah.
And I like the out. We were thinking, they're going to go Aram. They're going to go Aram here probably still. And they didn't. And then they go with the upside Aram in the second round. They're going to develop them. They're going to do it. They do it every time. It's one of those things where he has big time upside and he's in the perfect organization to develop him here. He was disgusting this year. I think he's going to continue to be disgusting. And now he's in the perfect situation. This is a guy I'm watching, like ready to just have massive prospect helium out of the second round.
100%. 3 picks at the end of the second round. Jacob Melton went to Houston, Brock Jones to Tampa, Carson Whisenhunt to San Francisco. Which of the 3 picks do you like the most? I think I like Melton.
Melton's my favorite guy here. We talked about it on the stream. I said I would even consider Melton over Jones. It's funny that they went back to back, so they're essentially like the same. I like Melton's game a little bit more. He's more of a late bloomer, but less swing and miss, also athletic, a little bit more physical projection in terms of just 6'3", 208 versus Brock Jones is maxed out football player at 6 foot, 200 pounds. Yeah. I like them both. And the fact that the Rays were able to swoop up Brock Jones here at 65th overall is pretty nuts. But I just think Melton is one of the most underrated players in the draft out of Oregon State. And I think he's going to be a really, really good bat that climbs quickly. So I'm going to go with Melton. Melton's potentially one of the biggest steals of the draft here at 64.
Interesting. 2 more picks to run by you. Judd Fabian to Baltimore. I want to say that was 67. That was competitive balance round B. Yeah, 67 to Baltimore.
I look at it at this point. If you're the O's, again, we talk about swinging for the fences. Beavers, big time power potential, some swing and miss concern. Holiday obviously is Holiday. Fabian, this was a first round prospect basically. Just
last year.
Yeah, and didn't sign. Didn't do enough to quell the swing and miss concerns. That being said, still hit a shit ton of homers this year.
Walked so often.
Walks a lot. Performed on the Cape. There's a lot to like here. If it works for Judd Fabian, he's a 30 home run guy in the big leagues, right? Like if it works for Fabian, that's what he is with good complementary skills. The thing is he's high risk. There's a lot of risk here, but at the end of the day, for the O's who already have an elite system, to take a shot at this guy at 67, I'm totally fine with that. They can take that risk there.
Yeah, I'm with you. And then the last pick for me, the Braves just grabbed a bullpen guy for this postseason run, 76th overall in compensation round 2. Blake Burkhalter had a meteoric NCAA tournament. Burkhalter out of Auburn, the righty, big dude, big stuff. I think he slots in there with Minter and Matzik and I mean everybody, dude. I think the Braves just got a guy that's going to debut this year in Burkhalter.
I'd assume so because why would the Braves take a guy this early unless it's to help them now?
I was expecting Ben Joyce to go, but like Burkhalter feels like another Ben Joyce type mold.
71 Ks, 7 walks. So there's a scenario where could you see the Braves try to stretch him out maybe into a starter, or do they just go all in on reliever and see how things go? Because I look at the command, it's pretty impressive. Obviously, he was like a meteoric riser late, not a lot of innings under his belt. Freshman season was cut short in 2020. 2021 through 21 innings was dominant as a reliever. Played in the summer league and again was a reliever. So he's never made a start. And that's part of it. But that's not deterred teams in the past. Are they looking at buying low on a guy that was only a reliever, or are they trying to fast track this guy to the big league bullpen?
I bet they fast track him to the bullpen and maybe think about expanding him into a starter. But I think once he comes up and if he succeeds in the bullpen, they're just like, oh, great, we've got another bullpen arm.
And that seems to be what the Braves are comfortable doing. I mean, we talked about the struggles of who am I thinking of? Lefty works as Jared Schuster in college before he finished strong. But he wasn't a guy that was starting every day. And like he was a guy that was kind of back and forth from the bullpen, then finished strong. They're not afraid of guys with limited track record pitching wise and experimenting with them. But this guy has a track record of closing out games. And if he can help their bullpen for a team that's trying to defend the title, I love it. I love it. So I'm always here for those kind of picks. And I'm interested to see who gets Ben Joyce because he did not get selected yesterday, right?
Well, yeah, he didn't get selected yesterday. So we'll see what happens with Joyce today. And I assume he's going to go before round 10. So that's that. All right, Aram, appreciate it, man. Enjoy the Derby. And I think we're going to talk to you after the All-Star game.
Are we? Is that what we're doing? We'll see.
I think so. It sounds like after the All-Star game, we're going to have a conversation with Ryan Lavarnway. And then we're also going to do a mailbag later this week. So it'll be good.
Oh, yeah. Looking forward to it.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you on Wednesday.